Okay, I am at the end of row 2 here, but I've actually not completed row 2 correctly, because at the end of row 2 you will note that we're asked to change to colour B, which is the pink, on the last yarn over. So we need to look at colour changes, which is hopefully the next section in our techniques overview section. So we'll do that, and then what we're going to do is move straight on to row 3, which is a Tunisian Simple Stitch row. So we've got two lovely chunky techniques to go through now. So let's get on with that. So as I said, I've kind of completed the row, but I've completed it incorrectly, so I need to take it back a little bit. I've only got one loop on my hook, and if I were just kind of working that row properly, I would have stopped when I've got 2 on the hook. So I need to go back, just pulled through, pulled the loop through 1 there. I need to go back so I've got 2 loops left on my hook, and that is the situation I am in now. To finish off, I had gone yarn over the hook and pulled through those 2, but I'm not going to do that, because what I want to do is drop that yarn. I'm finished with using that for now, and move that to one side. Now at this point I'm going to say to you, do not cut this yarn, do not cut the brick yarn all the way through. You can carry that right the way up the side of the work. Let me show you. That's going to go all the way up the side of the work, because that yarn is used on every other row, so there's no need to cut that, because else you'll have extra ends to sew in. Now if you remember, I said I was going to just use this smoother yarn, and I've made 2 balls of that, because if you also remember, I told you you've got to hold 2 yarns together, 2 strands of yarn together. Okay, and to start with, from the end of row 2 and to work row 3, I'm just working pink. Okay, that is that is colour B. Colour B is 2 strands of the pink held together. So this is representing the 2 strands of my pink alpaca classic. So I've got 2 strands held together. I'm going to take my hook with the 2 loops left on it, and all I'm going to do is, getting a terrible muddle, is loop it over the top of the hook and pull through those last 2 loops. Okay, so that is it. That's a colour change. A colour change has just happened, and that is all that you need to do. So you're probably familiar with colour changes. You'll have probably done them in other pieces of work, where all you're doing is you're just picking up the new colour on the last yarn over, and that is all there is to it. So more tips on colour changes. They're always going to happen at this side of the hook, so they're always going to happen when you're sort of starting your next row. They're not going to happen midway or down the other end at all. They're always on the right hand side of the work, and you will always be beginning a row when you've made a colour change. So just to reiterate, never cut this, because that's going to be used every other row. With your fluffy yarn, either your yellow or your pink, you will need to cut that when you've finished working the particular numbers of rows with them. Now, all the way through your pattern, you are told which colours to use. So just check what's coming up. If you've got the next row after your brick row is pink again, just keep it attached. You don't need to cut it. If you've finished, cut it and get ready for the next colour, but we'll talk about that in a bit. Right, okay, so I have now properly completed row 2 in line with my pattern, and I'm going to go into row 3, and row 3 says with B, so with colour B, which is the pink, TSS all stitches, TSS being Tunisian Simple Stitch. Now this, ladies and gentlemen, is going to be the what you would probably call the nuts and bolts stitch of Tunisian crochet. Okay, it's the most simple stitch by its name tells you what it is. So if you learn this one, you can make some really beautiful Tunisian blankets and pieces, just using this. So there's not anything else you'd need if you wanted to do some Tunisian work than this particular stitch. So what I have found useful is whatever colour I'm working with, if I have that over to my left and the dropped colour over to my right, I tend to get into less of a muddle. So I've got my yarn set up and I'm ready to work. If you cast your mind back to when we first worked the very first return pass, and we had a little look at the effect it was having on the work as we were coming back across, I pointed out these uprights to you, didn't I? Do you remember I pointed out these vertical bars that were being created. Those are important because that is where we're going to start putting our hook. We don't go through the work like we would with sort of our normal crochet work. We come behind those upright bars. Okay, so let me just bring that closer and show you again. Just as an example, here is an upright bar and my hook would go behind. It's not going through the work, it's just going behind, so the bar sits over the top of it. Obviously we're going to start over where our hook is now. So I've changed my colour, I'm ready to go. I'm going to get my hook and I'm going to put it through that first upright right there. And what we're going to do now is we're going to do sort of mimic what we did in our setting up section, which is go all the way along and pull up loops and keep them all on our hook. So I'm going to find my next upright, which is here, put my hook behind and pull up a loop. Now I appreciate that this is confusing, or can be a bit confusing, because we're using 2 strands held together, but you can see, can't you, just by the way that those are spaced out, that those are 3 stitches there. They're not 6, they're 3. So just moving along, being careful not to miss out any of those upright bars. You need to go all the way along and pull up loops. Now, at this point, what has happened in our pattern is that our pattern has now started to refer to just rows, but those rows actually mean working there and working back again. So working across like I'm doing now and doing the return pass, or there and back again, which I found a bit more sort of simple and straightforward. So there and back again. So we're doing the there all the way across, pulling up these loops, going under every single vertical bar and leaving them on the hook. Okay, I've got 2 more to go. You can see those 2 uprights left. I'm going to do the penultimate one, and then the very last one I'm going to do a slight bit different, because I'm not just going to go behind the 1 bar there, because this is sort of our beginning and end point. I'm going to just go under 2, so you can see I've got 2 strands going across my hook there, and pull my loop up that way. So it just keeps that edge, I don't know, nice and neat. That's how I've been doing it. So you can see we now look like we're in a very familiar position. We have completed going from right to left, and it looks a lot like when we sort of started off, didn't it? And we've got all those rows of loops on our hook. So we're now ready to do the return pass. And again, if you recall from the last video, I said to you that the return passes work the same all the way through. It certainly is. So let me just give you a little reminder. Don't forget, we haven't completed a row until we've gone there and back again. So we're only halfway through row 3. We've got to do that return pass to complete the row. So if you remember, we're going to pull yarn over and pull through and just make a chain in that first stitch. And now we're going to pick up the yarn and go through 2 loops all the way across. Okay, yarn over and through 2, all the way across. 2, all the way across. Just a standard return pass. Okay, so I'm coming towards the end again now, and I'm going to just stop when I've got 2 loops on the hook. Because if I look at my pattern, my row 3, I have to change to yarn A, which is the brick. I have to change to that yarn on the last yarn over. But before I do that, let's just have a quick recap. You can now see the same sort of the same effect as when we first did our setup, which is these upright bars and the horizontal yarn kind of running through behind, and there are gaps. Please don't worry about the gaps because they get filled in as we go. So that's absolutely fine. So you've worked from right to left, picking up the loops by going behind the uprights, and you've come back from left to right, doing that standard return pass that we did the first time around as well. And that there and back constitutes 1 row of Tunisian Simple Stitch. So the picking up the loops and the standard return, that is your Tunisian Simple Stitch, and you are now at the end of row 3, and I am just going to complete the colour change back to yarn A to complete that row. So I've dropped the pink and I'm going to move that to the right. I'm going to bring the brick over to the left. On my last yarn over, which is this one here, pick it up and bring through those 2 loops. And we are now ready to work with brick again. Now when I look forward in my pattern, I can see I've got another row to come using pink, so I'm not going to cut anything yet. I'm going to leave it as it is. I've got one more row coming up with the pink, and that is row 5. So I'm going to leave it as it is, and we'll look at that when the time comes.